Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Ryan in Singapore. Welcome to our mindfulness practice. Today's topic is about the basics of mindfulness. So, as the year ends, I just kind of wanted to wrap up with another event to kind of remind us, what is this practice? What am I here for? What's Ryan Grimes teaching? What's the main goal of what it is that I'm teaching? Okay, so mindfulness is being present. I mean, that's the simplest way to put mindfulness, is being present, being fully aware of what's happening. Maybe that's it. Even more simple than being present, because what's that mean? That sounds almost like a buzzword. Awareness, raw awareness, being aware of what's happening at any given moment, and noticing through that awareness, noticing what's happening to me right now in this moment, and seeing if I can also be aware of my own biases and judgments about what's going on in this moment. So noticing that everything that I experience, I tend to have some opinion about. Like, I like this, I want more of this, I wish more of this was happening right now. I don't like this. This stinks. I want less of this in my life. I want this to be over right now. And just seeing how that opinion comes up. And this can be one of the more important aspects of mindfulness, because it does affect the thought train. And that's something that you can observe as well, is that the thoughts that you had 2 seconds ago have affected the thought that you're having right now. And so you'll see that these thoughts kind of have this one is dependent on the other, and that if you're just if your mind is wandering, you'll see the relationality between the thought that you've just finished having and the thought that you're having now, which is going to affect the thought that you have the next second later. And so this is all part of our mindfulness practice. So you'll find that the mind is constantly wandering around if it's not focused on a particular task, right? So some people go, okay, well, when I'm golfing, or when I'm wakeboarding, or when I'm playing this sport, when I'm painting, right? Like, this is mindfulness to me. There's a difference between being mindful and being in a flow state. In a flow state, you're so focused that it's impossible for the mind to wander, right? Because you're so into the activity that you're doing that the mind it's just stuck in this because it's so enjoyable. We get wrapped up in it. And I think that's why I believe that although being in a flow state is healthy, it does give you a bit of a break from this constant thought stream. It's not the same as practicing meditation. In meditation, what tends to happen is that it tends to not be so interesting that we get into flow state, that instead and don't get me wrong, so that does happen sometimes, and that can be wonderful and feel wonderful when it happens, but quite often in the meditation practice we'll find that our mind does wander. And the difference is that because we're working on being aware, we can notice when the mind begins that thought stream. And so instead of this second leads to this second leads to this second, we have an interruption, that we are using an object of meditation, such as the breath, to try to be present. Again, using that word of being present, is to observe the body, observe a physical sensation in the body, preferably, because that is something that is observable in the present moment. And we'll find that as we try our best to stay focused on that, that the mind does wander. And then the mind will tend to go through a few seconds of wandering up to several minutes. And, that is where the mindfulness practice, probably the most useful piece of the mindfulness practice, is that moment that you notice that instead of focusing on the physical sensation in the body, that we are instead thinking about something and then observing, well, what is that thing that I'm thinking about right now? And what is it useful for me to be thinking about it? And secondly, right, I mean, it's interesting to observe what that is. Asking if it's useful, right? Typically in the meditation, it doesn't matter what the mind goes to. That our job during the meditation practice is, no matter what we observe, the mind has gone to. Whether it's extremely interesting, whether it's one of those amazing ideas that we want to stand up from our meditation practice and go right down, that we don't do that. That the purpose of the meditation practice is this training of the mind to be aware of what's happening inside the mind at any given moment, so that we see that, we go, oh, this is what I'm thinking about right now. And what I always tend to say as well is to trust, if you do get that brilliant idea, to trust that that idea is going to be there when the meditation's done. That the mindfulness training is powerful training for the mind. And it tends to be that these things that happen in the mind, if they're important enough, they stick around, and we don't need to get up and write them down immediately after the thought has happened. And that lots of thoughts, especially when we start to distill the mind in meditation, we find that all kinds of thoughts start to bubble up because we're so used to being stimulated. So that when we're sitting still, we're not doing anything, we find that the mind gets really active because of the constant stimulation that we have through scrolling on our phones, watching TV, having conversations with people, all of these things that are mentally stimulating. When we take away all the stimulation, the brain starts to move and be sometimes frantically looking for something to entertain you. And sometimes the things that it looks for to entertain you aren't positive things. So we observe the mind in what it's doing. And it is sometimes very interesting. And the big benefit of doing meditation practice every day, and it doesn't, let's say you do 5 minutes, you do 20 minutes, you do an hour, you sit, you do lying down body scan, right? We do mindful movement. It doesn't matter what kind of practice that we do, that this observing what's going on in the physical body and then being aware of when the mind wanders helps to build that skill outside of the meditation practice. So that when we are off the cushion, we're out in our regular lives, we can go, oh, my mind has fixated on this thing that I wasn't even aware that it was thinking about. And through that awareness that this thought is happening, I can choose to interrupt it. I mean, I think that's really it, is that the choice that we have is to interrupt that thought and to redirect the mind somewhere else. Okay, so does that mean that this thought that we have been thinking is no longer going to pop up? Well, not necessarily. In fact, quite often that thought will come back. And so it's this practice of observing, noticing, letting go, and then possibly repeating this process, like the rinse and repeat. And so this is the core of mindfulness practice. And so one of the reasons we use the body as an anchor is so that we can keep returning to the body in our daily lives. So that you use breath, or walking down the street, you're thinking about something that you go, oh, this is an unhelpful thought that I'm having right now. Okay, let me feel what it's like to be breathing. Maybe I practice mindful walking all the time. Let me redirect my attention to the soles of my feet. Feel my feet inside of my shoes. And allow that to recenter me out of this unhelpful thought. And I don't know about you, but I find about 80% of my thoughts aren't ones that are helpful, right? And it's funny that and how my practice has changed that as well, is that it used to be that I thought that constantly thinking about this thing, right, this relationship problem I'm having, or this regret that I had is helping me, is that constantly thinking about it and rehashing it is something that's helpful. And I think through my mindfulness practice, I've realized that, in fact, most of the time, that the constant thinking is it's entertainment. It's something that I'm doing because my mind just wants something to do. And that, in fact, resting the mind is often a better choice. I just wanted to share with you a little story that happened yesterday, and then we'll get into our practice. So yesterday, I was taking my son to his swimming lessons, and it's my son that he popped in last week. I edited him out of the replay video. So if you weren't here live, you didn't see him pop in, but he's like really sleepy and popped in here. And so I was taking him to his swimming lesson. And as we got off the bus and we're walking to the venue for the swimming lesson, and we were crossing a car park, right? Crossing the entrance to a car park. And he's 2 years old, so he walks really slowly. And as we were walking across the entrance to the car park, someone was trying to get into the car park, and I'm not going to yank him by the arm and try and pull him quickly across. We're still walking at the same speed, and the person in the car honked the horn, and my 2-year-old son, he jumped and was really scared and almost burst into tears, right? And I looked at the driver, and I gave him a dirty look, and I shouted a little bit, but he just drove into the car park. And so that was the incident. And so what I found was that as I continued walking, that the incident, although it was over, in real time, it wasn't present anymore. I wasn't being honked at or anything, or being, or having a confrontation. My mind was still there, right? I was imagining having a bigger confrontation. I was upset, and I was hanging on to that moment. And I was imagining, I was wearing sandals, so I was imagining, I'm going to take my sandal off and I'm going to whack his car, or and then imagining him getting out of the car and having a confrontation with him, and then there are people on the street, and so imagining them videoing, and then are the police going to show up, and am I going to be able to get out of that after I've hit his car with my sandal, right? This is all imaginary, right? It's completely imaginary. Everything that I'm going through in my mind is totally not real. And yet it's consuming me to the point that I'm thinking of the consequences of my imaginary actions. Right? And so then it's right at about that moment that I went, wait a minute. Mindfulness practice kicks in. This isn't happening right now. And I'm never going to see that person again for the rest of my life. Chances are. So why am I thinking about this right now? Right? What good am I doing continuing to think about this? So, done. It's over. I'm only harming myself right now by continuing to think about this. So, let go. Think about the swimming lesson that's coming. Or, better yet, right now, just take a few deep breaths. Focus on the feeling of breathing as you're walking down the sidewalk. Help to release whatever anger there is about the event that's over. And so I did that just for a few seconds, and then move on to thinking about, getting to getting to swim lesson on time, right? And that's it, and it's over. And like, as I was preparing for this, I thought, hey, what a great example. As I was yesterday, so I was thinking about this lesson and talking about, stress reduction, which I think is really kind of the key for my mindfulness practice, and the reason I'm here on Insight Timer leading these practices is that awareness of thought about things that aren't in the present moment. Often we do what I just did, was relive something in the past and think about how it could have gone better or better, right? Like, I'm going to do something violent towards this person, this person's vehicle, or, because of my, I mean, you can analyze it for as long as you want, because of my ego, right? I want to make a bigger deal about it. Or we time travel into the future and think about what's going to happen next. We plan. This often happens in meditation. We go, well, what am I going to do after the meditation's over? Right? Oh, I'm going to go do the laundry. I got to pay my bills. I got right? And that's what tends to happen. And so what is going on is that not focusing on, not intentionally or unintentionally planning the future or reliving the past is a huge cause of stress and suffering for us. And if we can become aware of doing that, then we can have a much more peaceful life. All right. It's 24 minutes into practice, or into our time together. So what I would like to do is have a 15-minute practice. So that means we'll end at the 39-minute mark. So if those of you who are expecting me to be here for 30 minutes, I'm here a little bit longer today. So the 39-minute mark will end today's practice, today's meditation. We'll have some discussion afterwards. So find yourself in a comfortable posture. Today's practice is going to be a body scan. So maybe you want to lie down. If you're lying down, choosing something comfortable to lie on. Palms open toward the ceiling. Feet gently falling away from each other with maybe a bit of space between the legs. And then whatever posture you've chosen, notice the supporting surface that is touching your body. So where is the boundary of what is me and what is outside of me? So often we can feel that through pressure because gravity pulls down on the body and something is pushing back. So your buttocks is very likely in contact with something unless you're standing. So can you feel where the edge of the cushion is? So where is the chair or cushion or floor no longer in contact with the body? And where is it in contact with the body? And you'll notice that the pressure is not the same throughout. That some areas the pressure is greater, some areas the pressure is less. And now, shifting attention down the body, down the left leg, to the left foot. See if you can bring your attention completely into the left foot, noticing the toes, the sole of the foot, the arch, the heel, top of the foot, the ankle. Notice whatever normal physical sensations are there. So we're not looking for something special, just observing whatever feelings are already there. Maybe you can feel, if you're lying down, the heel against the floor. If you're sitting in a chair, you notice the sensation of the sole of the foot against the floor. And then guiding attention into the left lower leg. Noticing the shin, the calf muscle. Again, observing whatever sensations are here. No need to try to generate sensations through movement. Maybe you don't observe anything at all. That can be your experience. Moving attention to the left knee. To the left thigh. Front and back, inside of the thigh, outside of the thigh. Left hip. So now holding the entirety of the left leg in awareness. The toes, the foot, the ankle, lower leg, knee, thigh. You observe all of the sensations, any of the sensations. What is it that I experience in my left leg right now? And on your next exhale, releasing the left leg from awareness. Guiding attention now to the right leg, down the right leg. All the way to the foot, the toes of the right foot, the sole, the top of the foot, the ankle, the heel. Holding the right foot in awareness. And now moving up the right leg. The right shin bone. The right calf muscle. The right knee. The back of the right knee. The right thigh. Front, back, sides. The right hip. And now holding the entirety of the right leg in awareness. From toes all the way up to the hip, everything in between. And then on your next exhale, releasing the right leg from awareness. And now, bringing into awareness the right buttock. The left buttock. And then around to the front side of the pelvis, the pelvic bowl region, the genitals, the perineum, the anus, tailbone, holding the entirety of the pelvis in awareness. And then beginning to move up the lower back, feeling each of the vertebrae. Noticing the muscles in the lower back. Moving into the mid-back. Noticing where the ribs begin to show up in awareness. And then the upper back. The shoulder blades. The muscles here between the shoulder blades. Noticing the neck muscles as well. Trapezius muscles here connecting the shoulders. Just observing, is there any tension here? And then bringing awareness around to the front of the body, noticing the chest. Rising and falling as you breathe. Maybe you can feel your heart beating inside your chest. And then including the abdomen. Appearing to inflate as you breathe in, to deflate as you breathe out. And then connecting the sides of the body in as well. And so here, for a moment, holding the entire trunk of the body in awareness. So the pelvis, the back, the chest, the abdomen. Aware of it all and seeing if you can notice how things are changing moment by moment by each breath. And now on your next exhale, releasing the trunk of the body from awareness. As we guide attention to the left hand, fingers of the hand, the front of the hand, the palm, the back of the hand, as we slowly move up the left arm to the wrist, the forearm, the elbow, the upper arm, the armpit, and the left shoulder. So now from fingertips to shoulder, can you hold the entirety of the left arm in awareness? And now on your next exhale, releasing the left arm from awareness. And guiding attention over to the right hand, the fingers of the right hand, the palm, the back of the hand, the right wrist, the right forearm, the right elbow, the right upper arm, the right armpit, and the right shoulder. Holding the right arm in its entirety in awareness, including the fingers, including the shoulder, everything in between. And on the next exhale, releasing the right arm from awareness as we guide attention into the neck, the front of the neck, the larynx, the blood vessels moving blood to and from the head, the jaw, the lips, the teeth, the tongue, the inside of the mouth, the upper lip area, the nose, breathing, feeling air moving in and out of the nostrils, the outside of the nose, the cheeks, the ears, the eyes, the muscles around the eyes, the forehead, the temples, the scalp, the crown of the head, the back of the head. Now, expanding awareness to the entirety of the head and face, and now expanding awareness even farther to include the entirety of the body, sitting here, lying here, breathing right now. And now we'll draw our practice to its close with 3 rings of the bell. Okay, you can transition out of your period of practice in whatever way you'd like. Thanks everybody for joining today. Hope the practice was helpful, useful. And what happened? What came up as you were doing this body scan today? Were you focused? Did you find your mind wandering? Any questions or comments? I mean, what's happened to you? Have you found your own mind wandering, and have you been able to catch it when you're in your daily life? Or you find that you have all kinds of unhelpful, unwanted thoughts. So what's your experience like? Matt says lots of wandering, then settled. And I'm going to go ahead and look up the chat also. Rachel says that was a great example, and it happens to me a lot. Dissecting the event afterwards and thinking of what I coulda, shoulda, woulda said or done better. And I don't think that we are alone, Rachel, in that. I think that this is a very common thing. Like, how could I have made that situation better? How could have I asserted myself more? And maybe hoping that next time it happens that we are more like the ideal version of ourselves that we envisioned in our reliving of the past. I will endeavor to bring mindfulness to bear going forward. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Gene. Having said that, I think the reason we dissect what happened is to learn how to do it, what not to do going forward. I notice my mind. Okay, the next one's something else. Yes, we do, and I agree with that. But the issue is that I think that what we tend to do is we think that that's what we're doing. And so we end up dissecting it endlessly or without intention. So I think that there is a way to learn from the past, and we should learn from the past. We should reflect on the past, but we should do so with intention and not just the mind's just kind of going back there and reliving it over and over again, right? Because that's what will happen if we don't kind of set aside and go, okay, now is the time I'm going to think about that incident and, maybe take notes on it, right? Get a pen and paper out to do journaling about it. That this helps to bring intentionality to that process so that we're not just mind wandering. Because if you observe and you really calculate the amount of time that you spend reliving things, you'll find that it's probably a lot more than you think you're doing. Because and a lot more than would be helpful. You write it in your journal and then you close the book and it's done. Is that possible? So this is another benefit of journaling is it kind of helps bring intentionality to the reflection process, so that we can do it and then and then kind of go, all right, it's done, the book's closed, and then when your mind goes back to it, reminding yourself, hey, wait a minute, this is done. I've already done this. I'm not going to do it more. I'm not going to cause myself to suffer even more by reflecting back on that. I notice my mind wandering a lot and coming back to the next body part you were talking about. Thanks, Rachel, for sharing. And that it tends to be how the body scan goes. Is that it's like, okay, left hip, right? And then it's like, okay, my mind's off, taking a little holiday. And then it's like, oh, wow, we're on the lower back now, right? And that this is really, really common and what tends to happen during these periods of meditation. Jean says, today, pink elephant, don't think of it. And that's kind of the reference of whatever you tell yourself not to think about, whatever that's impossible. If I tell you don't think about this, for sure that's the thing you're going to think about, right? So don't worry about it. Mindfulness isn't about not thinking, right? This is the monkey mind concept. So your little naughty monkey wants to go off and do all kinds of things, right? My mind wants to go off and think about all this great stuff. And So if I say, hey, don't do this, don't think about this, you can be guaranteed that the mind is going to think about that. Instead, say, give your monkey mind the task. Focus your attention. Right? Monkey mind, what's going on in my left foot right now? Right? That's interesting enough to keep the mind occupied and not saying, don't do this, because the mind doesn't behave very well. Yes, endlessly is the bit that's annoying. Thanks, Rachel, for sharing. Distracted until right thigh, says Jean. Thanks for sharing. And it's interesting, too, to see the process of the meditation. Is that for some of us, once we get started, it's kind of like doing the warm-up. We do our stretching, and then once we're into our practice, then it's easier to do. And it works better, sometimes. It's not always the case, right? Hey, I'm walking here. Let's see. Yeah. But you know what? It was worse than that because of I don't mind. I don't mind if somebody honks at me. It's just to see my little baby get all scared. Makes me really upset. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here today. Happy holidays. Hope you have a lovely Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever it is you're celebrating this year, this time of year, New Year, all of this stuff, wherever you're going. If you're going anywhere, if you're staying at home, have a lovely holiday season. And I'll just take it looks like I'm pretty packed with the holidays as a lot of us are, but I'll see if there's a little time I could squeeze in to do another live practice, just to kind of be together during these holidays. Happy Chanukah. Thanks, Rachel. Do take care, everybody. And I'll see you in the next year. So let's send our well wishes out to everyone. Follow along if you like. May I be happy and peaceful. May everyone watching, listening, wherever you are, I wish you all happiness and peace. And may all sentient life here and throughout the universe, wherever you are, I wish you all happiness and peace. Happy winter solstice. Or summer solstice if you're in Australia or New Zealand or in South Africa. Until next time. Bye-bye.